Today, we're talking about compilations. This is for another channel, Jack, over at the Vinyl Martini. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome to Northern Revolutions. I'm Rob. Welcome back if you're returning. Welcome if you're new. Contest entry today. Jack over at the Vinyl Martini, fellow Canadian in British Columbia. He is celebrating his 3-year anniversary in the vinyl community. Mine's coming up next month. Jack's got a great contest, just a simple one. He wants us to show some compilations. And what I love about Jack's contest is instead of a prize, which let's be honest, do we really need prizes? We do not. He's made a donation to his food bank. So I applaud Jack's philanthropy. I think that's great. Even if it wasn't a contest, even if it was just a thread, whatever, I would absolutely make a video to support Jack. I think he has a great channel and a great taste in music, and makes some great videos and has a lot of interesting records to show. So without me babbling any longer, I'm going to get into Jack's contest. First thing Jack wants us to do is give a shout out to another channel. There are so many that I watch, but I'm going to give a shout out to Richard S. Richard, relatively new, he's been doing it about 3 months. He was on my Wednesday Christmas live stream last night. I was Richard's #1 subscriber, but yes, he's a friend of mine, but he's also just an entertaining guy with some great records to show. Please check out Richard S. Now what Jack wants us to do is simply show some compilations. I've got about 8 or 10 here, so we'll go through them. First one, and these are in no particular order. This is a compilation that's put out on Fantasy Records called The Gollywogs Fight Fire. The complete recordings, 1964 to 1967. If you haven't heard of the Gollywogs, that's okay. The Gollywogs was the name of CCR before they changed their name to Creedence Clearwater Revival. This is a collection of singles and B-sides and a few unreleased songs that they made prior to making the change to Creedence Clearwater Revival. There is hints of CCR, but John was not the lead singer. His brother Tom was. John was not the songwriter. Tom was. So there's a reason the Gollywogs weren't successful. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not nearly as good as Creedence. But this is a compilation that it assembles all of their pre-Creedence stuff into a double LP set. In a very similar vein, this is The Master Plan by Oasis. I don't know when this came out. This was their 4th release. This is just after Be Here Now. And again, this is a compilation of B-sides and singles. And I actually really, really like it. I mean, it's the singles from and the B-sides from, Definitely Maybe, What's the Story, and Be Here Now. So excellent. There's some really good stuff on here. Acquiesce, Underneath the Sky, Fade Away. And probably their most famous song that wasn't on an album, Half the World Away, which is still a fan favorite to this day. Probably my 3rd favorite Oasis record. I love The Master Plan. Okay, we'll get the Beatles out of the way because I have a few. This one maybe not a lot of folks know about. This is a VJ release called Jolly What? England's Great Recording Stars, the Beatles and Frank Ifield on Stage. Everyone probably knows Introducing the Beatles, and everyone probably knows songs, stories, and pictures of the fabulous Beatles, the 2 VJ releases. Well, this came out at the same time. This was just VJ milking the rights to the Please Please Me album songs. They alternate between Beatles songs and Frank Ifield songs. Do I know who Frank Ifield is? No, other than he was some singer from England. But as a Beatles completist, I have to have this. VJ also did a compilation of the Beatles and the 4 Seasons. I don't have that. This is rare. The 4 Seasons one, incredibly rare. So, a Beatles and Frank Ifield compilation on VJ. And there's also this. This is called Very Together. This was a Canadian release on Polydor, I believe. Yes, Polydor. This was a compilation that came out in, I don't know, the 70s or late 60s, and they wanted to capitalize on the Paul's Dead thing with the candle being, John, Paul, George, and Ringo, and the flames blowing out, Paul's dead, whatever. Anyway, this was a Canadian release on Polydor. This is a compilation of the Hamburg stuff with Tony Sheridan. There are 12 songs in here, and the Beatles appear on about half of them. It doesn't actually credit on the back who they are. When they were recorded, it was Tony Sheridan and the Beat Brothers. Sometimes the Beat Brothers were the Beatles. Sometimes they were other musicians. So, Canadian Beatles, Tony Sheridan, and Assorted Artists compilation. Let's call it that. Folks in the U.S. would probably recognize it as this. This is on MGM, but it's exactly the same track listing. It's the same material. It's the same thing. A couple solo Beatles things. This is a compilation that John actually put out himself. This is Shaved Fish. This is a compilation that came out in, I think, 1976. This was the last release on Apple. Maybe it was 1975, before Apple closed down, and then it was restarted again in the 90s. But this John wanted to put together because this was a compilation of all his singles post-Beatles, with the exception of Stand By Me. It has all of his other singles on here, so they're great. Give Peace a Chance, Instant Karma, Power to the People, Imagine, Whatever Gets You Through the Night, Happy Christmas, War Is Over, and some others. This is really good. I mean, John Lennon's singles. So, a singles compilation. And we'll call this one a tribute compilation. This is called The Art of McCartney. It came out in 2014, and it is a tribute album. It is a bunch of artists recording their versions of Paul McCartney songs. So you've got folks like Billy Joel, Bob Dylan, Steve Miller, Brian Wilson, Jeff Lynne, Def Leppard, Roger Daltrey, Paul Rogers, Smokey Robinson, Alice Cooper, B.B. King, Sammy Hagar. It goes on and on and on. 3 albums worth of other artists paying tribute to McCartney. So it's a tribute compilation. Okay, no more Beatles stuff. This was a mid-60s compilation on Capitol called Shutdown. And this was to capitalize on that hot rod surf kind of music that the Beach Boys had made popular. And of course, the Beach Boys are on here twice with Shutdown and 409. But there's a bunch of other bands. No idea who any of them are. The Superstocks, the Cheers, Robert Mitchum, the Eligibles, any of these people are, but it's Capitol, sort of milking that car culture, California thing that came out in the 60s. So it's a compilation of a bunch of artists doing that kind of stuff. There is a Shutdown Volume 2, which is just the Beach Boys, which I also have, but that's not a compilation. This one is. This is another compilation, a promo-only release. This is Paper Bag Records versus the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Paper Bag Records is a small indie label in Toronto, of which I have several of their releases from some bands that I like. But what this was, in 2012, they had all of the artists on their roster contribute to a tribute of the Ziggy Stardust album for David Bowie, and each band takes on a different track on the song. I got this free as a gift because I had purchased something from the store and this happened to be included. So it's a compilation of artists paying tribute to an album. And last but not least, this is a compilation that was my dad's. This is the best of the King Biscuit Flower Hour, which was a syndicated radio broadcast. And it is multiple discs. I think there's 4 LPs in here of people doing live shows for the King that were recorded for the King Biscuit Flower Hour. So you've got Queen and Genesis and Peter Frampton and Phil Collins and Supertramp and Linda Ronstadt and Skinnerd, and it goes on. So this is really, really good. This is a live performance compilation. There you go, folks. There's just some compilations, probably all of the ones I have in my collection, in honor of Jack and his 3-year anniversary over at the Vinyl Martini. If you haven't already checked out Jack's channel, please do. Super nice guy. I will leave the link to his channel and his video in the description. That's everything for me today, everybody. Catch you on the flip side.